it's no surprise that this time of year, autumn, or as some may call it fall, is one of the favourite times of years for artists, and that includes myself, because of all the beautiful colours. So in this video I'm going to talk about a few colours that I would choose for using at this time of year in autumn. Now some of us say autumn and some of us say fall, and up until recently I just assumed that was a difference across the Atlantic and that the word fall was American, but it isn't. It actually originated here in the UK in the 1500s, and it's just that we stopped using it around the 1600s. It kind of gradually faded out, and autumn, which was an older word, overtook again, but it was actually originally sort of come from about the 1500s. So that's just an interesting snippet, something I didn't know, that the word fall did originally originate here. And of course it came just very simply from the falling leaves, and I did actually see a leaf falling yesterday, so we are starting to feel very autumnal, even though we're still just in August as I record this. It might be September by the time it goes out. So I've just chosen a few colours here and I will list them, and these are from the range that I use all the time in my own works, and this is a Liquitex soft-bodied acrylics. The nice thing about the soft-bodied acrylics is they're quite free-flowing. They're not just as chunky and thick as the original acrylics, as you know, the more traditional acrylics. So you can use them a little bit more like watercolour. I mean, they're not comparable, but you can just get that more of a flow off your brush, blend them a little bit easier, and there's a bit more transparency with some of the colours. So one of my absolute favourite colours in this range is the Indian yellow, and that's the colour we're going to set off with. So I put that all over the leaf to begin with, and it kind of shines through, and you'll see that the pencil lines are still showing through that Indian yellow. It's a little bit transparent, and that's great because the white of the paper shines through and really amplifies those colours. As you'll see on the video, I began with a very simple pencil sketch. This was entirely out of my head. A very easy way to do a leaf out of your head if you've not got one to hand, mind you can find lots of pictures on the internet, is just to draw the veins first and then put the shape around it. And don't forget that at this time of year most leaves are not going to be perfect. They're going to have holes in them, they're going to have little chiggles out of the side, they may be torn. So if you make them too perfect and too even a shape, they're not going to be as convincing as an autumn leaf. So bear that in mind if you're doing something out of your head, to make it a little bit damaged. And some of the darker colours come in where that damage is. So if you have a look at some leaves on the floor as you're walking around, you'll notice where they've been damaged, where they've been torn. It goes drier quicker and it ends up being a darker colour. And the colours of course will depend on the variety of leaf and the amount of light they've had and all sorts of different things, how many colours you get in there. And you probably wouldn't need to use as many as I have. I've just used these colours because they're the ones that I really love. So I set off with the yellow and then put the other colours on the top, trying to work very quickly so that the paint isn't drying out. I do have a little spritzy spray bottle of water that I do very lightly over the acrylics sometimes, but it is only a very light mist and I do it from quite a distance so that I'm not getting big blobs of water on there and making it too wet. And at the end, when I've finished with those acrylic paints, if I've got some left, I give them another spritz of water and then put some cling film over so I can come back and use them again tomorrow. So as I said earlier, I started with that yellow colour and then put the other colours on top. We still have some green in there, so I added obviously blue into this palette to use, which you're still going to need green going through. As I've said in lots of other videos, you may want to add a little touch of red to your green to make it a bit more natural. I quite like the green that I mixed of the Indian yellow and the Cobalt Blue. It's one I use quite often. It makes quite a muted green and I really like that one. I think I perhaps used it in this actually. So this is quite an autumny one. I think this was around this time of year last year, or end of August. So things are just starting to shift on the fells with the bracken and everything else. So these colours aren't just for leaves, of course you're going to get them when you do a larger landscape and you've got a mass of trees, you've got some woodland, but also on the fells you've got the bracken like I said, and all the grasses are changing. We've still actually got some of the heather around at the moment, so that's another colour you may want to bring into some of your landscapes at this time of year. But when you're out and about, have a look at the colours, really register them, and think what things that you've got in your palettes at home that might go with those colours that we see. Of course, burnt sienna is one that we often go to, but try and expand it out a bit and use some more oranges and reds and get a bit of a mixture in there. You'll see that I used the end of the brush. I have some brushes with a shaped chisel end, but you can use something else to scrape off some of the paint to go back to the yellow as well. So you try out some scraping out techniques as well to get those veins if you want to have a go at this. I just used a very thick card. These acrylics work nicely on a nice smooth thick white card. So the main point of this video is to say have a little bit of fun with your colours, experiment with them, use some of those reds and golds and yellows in your palette that you've maybe not used before, some of those oranges. If you've got some, especially if you're working in watercolour and you've got a big set, I'm sure if you look at it there'll be some that are completely dry that you've never used. Have a go with colours that you don't normally use. Have a bit of an experiment. And don't be afraid to go from really dark to really light, because that's what's going to happen with these leaves where they're damaged. You're going to have those dark spots. You may have, also one thing I didn't put on mine that you may have is sometimes there's actual disease on the leaves. You get these black spots. And then you might have some really light areas where they've, maybe they've got mould, maybe they've got, a little bit of very bright yellow where the light's hitting them. This still might be a little bit smooth and picking up the sunlight. So really observe. Get your sketchbook out and observe the shapes of the leaves and also the colours of the leaves at this time of year and have some fun with it. You could do a whole page of these leaves just out of your head if you wanted to. I'm going to come back again with some more videos soon. I am actually going away on holiday shortly, so it may be a little while, but I'm going to come back and do a lot more on colour because it's something I get asked about quite a lot. It's something I enjoy talking about. I know it's very subjective. I've said this before, we've all got favourite colours. We may not be completely realistic in our style. I really don't worry about making my colours ultra realistic because realism isn't my thing. But you've got to make them convincing. So although they may not completely emulate what you're seeing, they've got to give that feel of the time of year, the feel of the time of day, and got to be convincing. And part of that comes in with your tones as well, going from your darkest to your lightest. So all these things we're going to go into more depth with in the coming weeks because colour is something that is really so important. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Any questions at all you have about colour, about the autumn colours, the things that I've used today, please do put those in the comments below. I always try and answer them as quickly as I can. And it's nice to have a bit of a discussion with everybody else down there as well, talking about your favourite colours in the ranges that you use. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you again soon.